Welcome to the channel all about economic board games. Today I'm bringing you a run through of this game, Smartphone Inc. Now I brought you guys an overview last week if you're after a slightly shorter video on this one, and it even says it's an economic board game. We've got the designer at the top here, the artist says 1 to 5 players, so you've got that solo option as well, and I think it's about right, plays in 90 minutes, and it's brought to you by these guys at the bottom. Now we are CEOs of smartphone companies. We're selling phones to the global market. Now this board is rather big and takes up pretty much the whole camera view. So on the side here I can only fit one player. I've got the yellows out of view, which I'll kind of show you as I act these out. Now it's a plays up to 5. I'm going through a 2-player game today. There's just me here as usual, and I'm not going to go too heavy into the rules because the game pretty much flows really nicely with these 8 phases over the 5 rounds, and hopefully I'll get through one full round for you. So as I say, we're CEOs running these smartphone companies. We're trying to sell phones across all these different markets to various different customers. Once we've built offices in these various places, we can do so. We're hoping to sell those for money depending on the price we've set, and at the end of the game whoever has the most money, and it's kind of interchanges between money and victory points, but let's just say the most money is going to be the winner. Now in this 2-player game I've set up these retail markets, and there's quite a few of them in the 2-player game. If you play with 5 players, the whole world becomes available, and scaling down from 432 there's a number of these as well which scale down, and I'll kind of explain what the retail markets do shortly. So the first thing we do then, round 1, is phase 1, and this is where you get your pads, and you've got 2 pads to begin with. You'll have one that's got this sort of little black outline and one with the clear outline, and each player gets 2 of these, and this is where you're making all your decisions, which will become a lot clearer as we go through the phases. But essentially in this phase you've got this screen which is just out of camera view, and this is kind of nice, tells you which company you are. Red berry kind of says where your marker is on the score track, which is color coded as well, and that can have a big impact on turn order. You've got some maths tables here to help you out, and more importantly it gives you your starting improvement, which is here, and I don't want to forget about that one. And you've got some nice artwork on the back, but I'm going to keep that out of view. Now those are crucial during phase 1, these screens, because you don't want people to see what decisions you're going to make. Now what are these decisions? So you've got these 2 pads, you've got all these symbols on both sides. You get to pick which orientation you want to put it, which way, but you have to cover at least one of the other boards. So that board you can cover one of them, and you can cover up to 4, so between 1 and 4. So let's just say we placed it like that, we've covered 2, that's legal. You can do any orientation, as we say, any way round, whatever you want, because the symbols you can visibly see is what the number of those actions you can do when it comes to later on in the round. And the more places you cover, the more products you get to produce. So if we cover 4 spots, doesn't matter if there's a symbol there or not. If you cover 4, you're going to be producing 4 products, which are these black symbols. Now in this case you get 4 below it, and any black symbols that you can see you get as well, so plus the 1, so 4 plus the 1 is 5. If you had it that it was like this, you would get the 2 products produced just below it, so 2, you get the 3 and the 4. So that's kind of why you might be incentivized to cover more spots than you want, but the opportunity cost of that is you're covering symbols that you might otherwise need. So that's kind of how you're going to be making your decisions, and you have to play your starting improvement board, and you'll be acquiring more of these. They have to go physically on one of these pads entirely. You can't sort of hang it off, so you could go here. You can cover them as well, so you could maybe cover that if you wanted to. If you had other boards, you can cover other improvements, but you can't cover it fully. So there's a few things you can do and you can't do. But you kind of get used to it. It's fairly obvious. So let's put that one back. That's our one. So let's just say, I'm not going to think too hard, but I'm probably going to want to go for these purple cogs and some of the blue ones, and that'll kind of make sense in a minute. And what can we do with this one? Let's cover that. So we're going to go for this formation, which is, we'll see if that pans out. I haven't thought too much about it. Now each player would do that simultaneously. You then reveal. So for yellows, let's go with that one. I'm not going to think too much. There we go. And I'll kind of leave it. I'll bring that into play when it's yellows go as such. So that is literally phase 1. You've made your decisions, you've revealed them, boom, we go on to phase 2. Now this is about pricing, so each player would look at their board, and again simultaneous, so this player has no pricing symbols, which are little red markers. So red just stays at 5. You can see it goes all the way up to 8 and down to 2. The yellow players look at their board. Now, once you've made those decisions in round 1, you can't change these boards from the other throughout the other phases. You are stuck with this orientation. So in this case, they've got a plus price increase and a -1. So again, they stay the same. If it had have been like, what have we got? Let's hide that one there. If it had have been like this, the +1 would have meant their price for yellows would have gone up 1. And that's literally how you'd increase the price. Now, pricing strategy is crucial. I can't remember where that went now. Let's just say it was there. Pricing strategy is crucial because it determines player order, and that will make more sense when we get to number 4. So we've done the price effects. Number 3 is you get your products. So going back to red, you can see they covered 2 spots. So they're going to get 2 products, and they've got 2 black crates available, so that's 4 in total. Now this little tray here kind of shows your, what should we say, factory. In here you can't see, but there's a little padlock above the crates, which means these aren't for sale. We've produced 4 in this case, so we take 4 of them. We put them in this area where there's a little crate symbol to show that we can now sell potentially up to 4 this round. Now, you have to use all these 4. You can't accumulate them from round to round. And there's a little symbol here that's recycle, which will make sense when we get to that. But once you've sold them or used them, they go into this section here. Now, that's the reds. The yellows have produced. We've got 4 covered up below the pad, and we've got 5, 6. So they're going to get 6 of these containers of smartphones there. They're known as. So that's a whole container there. 6 of those produced. Over to round phase 4. This is where you're potentially going to get some improvements. Now, this is where turn order comes into play. So we look at the price. Whoever has the lowest price will go first. In a tie, which is this case here, you go over to the sort of scoreboard here, and you can see that the players start off, depending on what colour company you are, in certain positions. So green would have a value of 3, and red's at the top here at 7. Now, whoever has the fewest points will be breaking the ties. So yellow in this case is lower because they start on 6, so they go first. Now what does that mean then? They get first dibs at these improvements if they have a yellow symbol, and they do. So they are going to go for one of these improvements, and let's say they want to focus on a price increase and one of these logistics. So it doesn't come into play yet. You keep it aside, and on future rounds that will mean something. And over to the reds, who do have a yellow symbol as well, so they can take one of them. Now, if you didn't have a yellow symbol available, you can see at the bottom it says if you don't have one, you're going to take one of these crates, which basically means from round to round you're going to produce a product, and the lock symbol means you can't put it on your pads, and you can see both sides are the same. Now, if you did not want to use one of your improvements later on, you can, so let's just say you didn't want to use this improvement on there, you can turn it over, and again it's got the padlock, but it shows you're going to produce a product instead. But it's usually more advantageous to use this size, because you can see you're going to get a product and an increase in your transportation and logistics. Now, that is literally number 4. Number 5 is about spending progress tokens. So you can see here, or did I do? I don't think I chose one. I chose one for yellow. I'm going to choose an improvement for red then. What should we go for? Let's go for this one. So we'll plonk that aside for now, which is just out of camera view. But that doesn't come into play this round. That's on future rounds. We have to use that. So we've done number 4. Number 5 is where we use these progress tokens. Now we go back to the player order. So remember, this will stay the same throughout, because there's no changes to the victory points and the price, because we've already done the pricing strategy. So it will be yellow still as the priority order, and they're going to be placing depending on how many are on the board. So let's have a look at yellow's pads. They haven't actually got any of those purple symbols, which are improvements of your technology, so they're not actually going to put out any of these, which is really not the best strategy in the first round. Whereas the reds have got 1, 2, 3 of those purple cogs visible, so they're going to take 3 of these, and they get to put them at the bottom of the board. So this is where the technologies are. You got 6 of them. There's a bit of variability as well as to what bonuses you get, and you can see that you're going to place your progress markers on one of these spots. Now, how many do you need? So if you want to achieve, for example, the 4G capability, which means your phones have that technology, you're going to need 6 of these progress tokens. So if we wanted to achieve one straight away rather than waiting for another round, we could go here. We could put 3 there straight away. And you can see it requires 3 to do it. We take this little token which comes out, pops out. This is the patent. Now, the first player to get there and achieve the number 3 will get this, and you get 6 victory points at the end of the game. You keep that in front of you or on your little stash there. And we then take your tokens back. Now, for any player who goes there after that, it's only going to cost them 2 of those progress markers. Now, once you achieve one of these technologies, you place one of these little office tiles on the technology to show that you have completed that. You also get this benefit if it's ongoing. Sometimes it's an instant benefit. In this case, it says during round 3, which is the production of the goods, we're going to get an extra one of these for each one of these symbols. So we haven't got any of them visible, but we'll try and remember that. And there's some really great benefits as you say develop 4G. First person to do that is going to get 12 points in the game. And in this case, the ongoing benefit is during phase 1, which is making your decisions, one part of your improvement can be outside of your pad. So normally they're inside the pad, or it can be outside, which gives you more capabilities to do things. So maybe you want to go for 4G. Now, these technologies as well will link in a moment when we come to choosing which customers we can sell our products to. So where we red have gone then, so we go over to blue, and again priority order is yellows. They're going to look at their board and see how many of these symbols they've got. So what I really like in the game is the symbology matches everywhere, you know, from your pads to your board here. It's very clear and it flows really well. So these guys have got 2 of these little truck symbols. So what does that mean then? It means that yellow, who are starting in India on their office, because that is what their player board said. You can see Redberry says you start in CIS, and it's kind of got a little red symbol there to show that. And yellows, this is their starting market. Now, to expand and be able to sell goods to other markets, they need these offices there, and you're going to have to build them by following these adjacent paths. So let's say they want to go into the Emirates and start selling to these customers potentially. They follow this line. You can see you need 2 of those little truck symbols. So again, use your progress markers, and it was yellow in this case, wasn't it? And they did have 2 of those blue trucks. They can put 2 there. They've met the requirements, so they're pretty much taken them back straight away. And they get to put one of their yellow offices. You always put them on the furthest left, and they now are able to sell their phones to this market. Reds then have 2 trucks as well. They started off over here. They're going to need 4 for that one, 4 for that one. They can go over to Canada, which is 2. So they're going to do that. So we'd have put 2 out, take them back straight away, and we can put an office in Canada. Now, it's slightly different here because we've got these retail boards, which you add on in various player accounts, and they cover up the customers at the bottom. These are one-time places to go to, and literally you take the furthest left spot, and you're going to get 11 of these points at the end of the game. Now, it says here that you can't have more than 1, so you can't have 2 offices there, so other players can come along, and you get an instant benefit, which is place one of those tokens that look kind of like little stairs onto one of these areas here. So they're going to go and start working on the battery life of their phone, shall we say. So that is it. It stays there for the game. There is sometimes various technologies that let you move them around. For example, I can't see one at the moment. Maybe that one there, that lets you move one. And we are over, so we did our transportation. We're over to putting our goods out onto the board. Over to yellow then. So remember, yellow have moved their goods from here. They've produced them. So this is the maximum number of goods they can sell this round. You can't accumulate them. So they produce 6, and they're looking at the markets they can sell them to. So they've got offices in the Emirates and India. So they're the only places they can sell. So India then, you start from left to right, and you can see this customer here, and you can only ever put 1 cube on there. So once there's a cube there, reds can't come along, and they couldn't do anyway because they haven't got an office in the market. So This customer wants a phone at price that's priced at 3 or less, and currently our price is 5, so it's too expensive, our phone. These guys are happy, they're willing to pay 5, so we can put one there. These guys are willing to pay, below 6, so they're happy to pay 5 for their phone. We don't have that technology, that one or that one, so we can't sell to those customers. And that's literally it. You choose another market of your choice. Now remember, if you've got only a few of these, you might want to pick this one first and then that one, because there is some area control when it comes to getting these extra victory points here, which I'll go through in a minute. So they go to the Emirates, they can sell a phone to that customer, and they haven't got any of these technologies developed yet. Okay, so that was the yellows. Remember, it's priority order. Over to reds, and now I should have added that those 3 goods that I couldn't have sold, you can use this recycle symbol to remind you that they go in there as well. And over to reds, who have got 4 goods. Now you can see that they are in this market here, and they're in the retail market, but you can't sell goods to a retail market because they're kind of all covered up, and the whole point of it is you're going to get those points at the end of the game. So they've stuck to this market here, and they can't sell to the free customer because their phones are priced at 5. They can sell to that person and that person. And have they got any technologies? They've got this technology at the bottom, and that is it. They haven't got any of those, so these 2 are going to get recycled, and we move over to phase 8. This is where you turn those products you've placed in the market into dollars or money, and we are looking at the reds and purples first. So let's start with yellows. They've sold 2 phones here and another phone there, so 3 containers of phones, and it's irrelevant what's under them. You literally get the number, so 3 times the price of 5 is 15, so we'd add 15 to here, takes us to 21. We then do the same for red, so they've sold 2 phones and they're priced at 5, so 10 for them. And then you do the area control, so we can see that you have to have sold a phone in the market to be able to get the area control, so they're winning here. And you look at where the furthest right office is, so in this case 2. Let's just assume yellow had built an office there as well. It's irrelevant to the colour, it just pushes up the victory points. There's more competition and more heat in the market. So if this was the case, red's got the majority and they would actually get 3 victory points, but at the moment it's only 2, so they'd add on 2. Where are we? 19. These guys have got 2 for that one, and they've got 1 for that one, and red doesn't get anything because that's a retail market. So it shows you that expanding out, selling the odd phone here in different markets gets you some points that accumulate over the rounds, because you get an area control there. Now let's just give you an example, because I'm only going to be playing 1 round. Let's just say yellow was here, and there is the odd occasion where you can put 2 in there, depending on some of these bonuses. You can see here the 5 and the 2, and if it was the case that yellows had the technology for doing that one, you can see the area control for red. They look at this, they're going to get 5 points, and there's a second victory point symbol there, which means second place will actually get you something. So that's a little bit of how that would work. Now, if you're playing with sort of 5 players, 4 players, you're going to get a lot more of these officers out and some juicy points. So that was area controls. You turn them into victory points. Hopefully I didn't miss any of them. You then refresh the board, so you take off all these cubes. So red going back in there, yellows coming back in here, which you guys can't see. We then replenish all these, so you get rid of them. You put some new ones out, and you've got a host of combinations which are crucial for when you decide to choose these pads. We then importantly put the prices back at 5, which they are. So if you had gone for a really high price strategy at 8, you're going to reset all the way to 5. And finally, you go into round 2, and we do that all over again. We start with the decision phase of your pads. Now this time you'll be using the innovation, the improvements you'd had from last time. So maybe we're thinking, right, the reds want to expand into China, or maybe they want to get into Europe and then down into North America, whatever you want to do. So they may be thinking, right, I want all the trucks, they're going to cover those up. They're going to use this pad here, and we've got this pad, and we're going to cover that there. Remember, you can't hang over. You can cover up those as well if you wanted to. And if you did not want to use one of these, because maybe you really wanted the yellow and you didn't want to cover these up, you could just turn it over, and you're going to be getting a produced good for that. I'm gonna leave it there because I think it's so streamlined in terms of how a round plays out that, you know, I'm not really going to get a chance to show you much else different. But you're going to be expanding out into different markets. The two-player game on this particular board is a bit restrictive, really, because there's a lot of retail units. But, you know, if you get into China here, you're going to be getting 20 points at the end of the game for going first. You get a change in your price, which I really like those because it gives you a chance to change the price, whereas it's normally only done in round 2. But, you know, you might have achieved that in round 6 when you've got your what they call progress tokens there, and then you might sneakily decide to increase or decrease it depending on player order. So I like that. And you know, these give you good end game points. It's really competitive over that turn order because if you decide to go for a cheaper strategy, you'll soon realize that you're going to have to sell more phones to recoup the revenue. So these guys can sell, you know, 4 phones for 20, whereas these guys are going to have to sell 5 phones for 20. So puts a bit more pressure on their sort of production and supply there. But it gives them, more importantly, the yellows in this case, the turn order, and they get to go first, which, let's just say, for example, let's go with Europe. So they've both got offices there to sell, and yellows had 5 goods, and they were priced at, they're priced at 4. So these guys are happy to pay 4. They're happy to pay, they're happy to pay, and they're happy to pay. And you continually go from left to right. And if, say, you don't have that technology, but you do have the batteries, let's just assume that was the case. Get an office on the batteries here, and they took the painting. They'd skip that one, put that one there, and then they had the chance to crowd that market and saturate it as such. So when Reds come along, and let's just say Reds didn't have, let's say they had Canada and here, and they really wanted this one because, you know, there's 4 victory points on offer, and they'd built, you know, they'd worked hard on their technologies. They now come to this market, and you can see it's already been sold to. So they don't have that technology, they don't have that one, and they don't have that one. And like, oh, I can't sell any of my phones I've worked hard for in this round, so I'm only selling to this market. Well, they can't sell to that. They're priced at 5, so they could do that one and that one. And let's just say they had the, there's not even the battery there. So you can see how entering markets before your opponents restricts your opponent's access to, potential to sell their phones. So the strategy then may have paid off because these guys have managed to sell 5 phones at 4 for 20, whereas they only managed to sell 2, for example, for 10. So, and there's only 5 rounds, so things like that can really play out. Now, I should say about the paintings, I've already kind of showed you that one of these guys had the batteries, and these have some nice benefits on as well. They stay there. Once you've built an office, you can utilize this. So these guys in phase 6 are going to get a plus, an extra little truck symbol for each of those pluses there. There's some good variability as well. You can see you can mix and match these from game to game, so I really like that as well. These are really nice add-on in terms of, you know, changing your boards, and if you get this 4G one, it lets you put one of those improvements just off your board, which is really nice. And literally, you carry on, go through the 5 rounds. Whoever has the most victory points at the end, you'll then add on these ones for end game as well. Depend on patents. You'll add on any of these retailers that you managed to acquire as well. Most points wins. There we are, folks. Hopefully that was of use to you guys.